now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Making some changes to the studio, so I look really far away now. Let me see if I can adjust this just a tad. There we go. Yeah, there's too much headroom in this shot. You get to see more of me, but somehow this needs a little adjusting. Oops. Is that any better? Somehow you still seem really far away. All right, we're gonna fix that, folks. We're still working on a few things. We got some new equipment over the weekend. And yes, we need to bring it in. It's a little bit far. So we are working on that. Can anybody hear me? Good morning, everyone. How are you guys? Who is here? Who is on the live stream? Looks like everybody's sleeping. What is going on? It's already feeling hot for the morning. Happy Monday. We got a lot to cover in terms of what happened over the weekend for the press conference. Let me turn the AC on because Larry, there we go. I was beginning to wonder if I'm all alone here this morning. Good morning, Larry. I see 40 of you tuned in. Good morning, Dawn. There we go. We've gone up to 43 people now. Who else is here with me? Janet, beautiful Janet. Thank you, Miss Janet. And Miss Joy. Hi, Sharon. Buenos dias. Did you guys have a good weekend? I do see that definitely we need to make some adjustments, but don't worry, we'll get all that sorted out. We've got some new camera equipment coming on the way as well. And my tech guy, AKA hubby, has been hard at work trying to put together different bits and pieces of my space for me to try to maximize what I have to work with. I know one of the things he definitely wants to do is to mount my, my monitors like on the wall, which means that they would be further away. And you guys know, hello, I'm getting my glasses either today or tomorrow. So Melita, good morning. Good morning, Siobhan. Good morning, Lynette. Thank you so much for tuning in. Evelyn, where were you this morning? Everybody looks like we're getting a little bit of a late start. Olivia, okay, now we're here for it. I'm feeling like everybody's awake. Hank, good morning to the lovely Hank. Thank you so much for tuning in. Larry, I've just received your Facebook invite, so I'm going to accept that. By the way, I have two Facebook accounts, just for full disclosure. One is Sandra Hill and one is Sandy Hill. And the reason why I have two is because sometimes I get blocked on Facebook. Imagine that, right? Ina, is that how you pronounce your name, Ina? That's a lovely name. Good morning. Good morning, Pauline. Yeah, so sometimes if I post something that's like a little bit naughty, Facebook takes away my privileges. Speaking of privileges, good morning, Mindy. A bunch of people messaged me on Friday to say that they had been blocked as a result of There we go. Looks like equipment around here didn't get charged over the weekend. So we will keep an eye on this situation. Let me see if this cord can reach all the way over here. There we go. Yes. Okay. I think we should be back with audio. Yeah, you guys can hear me? All right, awesome. Good stuff. Good to go. So yeah, so this lady went and reported your comments to Facebook. And you know how Facebook blocking works, right? So Facebook doesn't always intelligently decipher what's going on with a particular situation. I'm going to increase my light a little bit because I notice, there, and let there be light. So a little bit more brightness here in the studio. So yeah, so she reported a bunch of people for your comments. Now listen to me when I tell you folks, freedom of speech is under erosion in this country. And it's one of the reasons last week, you guys know that I was in court and I was going to do summary court. So there's two separate trials that they've come at me with. One is on disorderly conduct because I used probably the F-bomb and something else at a protest. Remember Mendoza and the whole situation with Mendoza, and we were out protesting. This was like the third or fourth time that I had been on location and was just tired of his SHIT. Okay. And so, yes, I used a few F-bombs or whatever. I think there's like 2 sentences out of being there an entire day that they pulled out and claimed that because I said those 2 sentences that contain profanity, that was disorderly conduct. Folks, our freedoms of speech in this country are under erosion. And I know a lot of people think this is me versus them, and it is. But there is the bigger issue of us versus them. Because if they can take away my freedom of speech as a media, and I don't really give two cahoots how they want to define what I do, I am a member of the media. And if they can erode my freedom, what do you think they will do with yours, and how easy it will be to shut you down? So on Thursday, I was in court and I got a couple court dates. And then afterwards, after I found out that the same DPP that came at me the last time, who I don't even want to tell you guys some of the stuff that she was saying in court during the Matthew Leslie case, I mean, just completely rude. And she was, I mean, if I could have stood up and said disorderly conduct in court, that would have been her. I mean, she's making all sorts of allegations about me and my personality and what had transpired. And she knows nothing but what one person has told her, which she has bought hook, line, and sinker, right? And convinced a judge to believe that same cockamamie story. And as a result of that, you know, I got convicted. You guys know I'm going to appeal that, and there's a whole bunch of other things there. But I thought to myself, if I put my fate in the hands of a judge again, the exact same thing is going to happen, because they don't seem to live in the same community, in the same world that we live in. They live in a very privileged society. And this is what bothers me about our jackass last week. She lives in a privileged society where that privilege protects her from the realities of the world. So that privilege protects her from knowing that, yes, when you say you're going to do X, you should do it. Because if you do not do it, you know, there will be consequences. No, 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 folks. People like that are not used to any consequences, right? They are used to doing whatever they want, and they can continue doing it and nothing ever happens. So the more I thought about it, the more I said to myself, I need to have a jury trial. Enough of this judge alone foolishness. Take it to the people, let the people see the evidence for themselves, and let the people decide on the strength of the evidence what they think is actually going on here. So yes, folks, our, voices are being muffled. And I'll tell you a little bit of something that I found so interesting. Another member of the media said to me, I'm very concerned about this case. We're very concerned about this case, but we don't want to say anything, because if we speak up, we're going to be next. They're going to start targeting us. And what if we need the police? What if we need police protection and we don't get it because we've been overly critical of them? I was like, the media is afraid in this country to speak up because of the consequences. Folks, I tell you not a word of lying. I put my hand on the Bible and I tell you that this conversation happened, and that there are other media in this country who are not speaking up, not because they don't want to, but because we have been so muffled in this country and gotten so used to that as being the norm that they too are afraid. And look, they look at me going, well, God, look at what happened to you. You know, you were dragged into court. You've now lost a case. What next? Well, folks, it's coming. And disorderly conduct is not any big time charge. Yeah, I use profanity, but it's a matter of freedom of speech. And if I want to have that freedom and I want to drop an F-bomb, I don't see what the issue is. We have Christians saying how much they hate the gay community and that those people should be hung. And yet that's probably not really a criminal offense. So why can't I use an F-bomb or whatever it was that I said? It's just unbelievable, folks, the foolishness that is being tolerated in this country. Good morning to Mindy. Good morning to the lovely Kathy, Angela. Thank you so much for tuning in. Lisette is here. Brita, wow, lots of people. We went over 100 people already. Pauline, thank you. Sharon, the beautiful Sharon, thank you for tuning in. Siobhan, Jay or Jai? How do you pronounce your name? From Tyler, Texas. Woohoo! Thank you so much. Brita says, always face a jury. Yes, I would rather take my chances with a jury of my peers who are more likely to be able to relate to exactly what I'm talking about and what is happening in this country than some highfalutin, you know, DPP representative and lawyer who don't live in the same world that we live in, folks. Sad reality, but it's the truth. Good morning to the lovely Morna. Thank you so much. Morna's got her tea ready. Nikki, hi Nikki, what's up? Irvlin says, people say I'm feisty, but I'm not. I'm just outspoken. I will not be bullied by anyone. And this is the thing. In this country, you do not get the luxury of speaking your mind without consequences. And even when your mind, it's like, I mean, I reflect back on the Matthew Leslie case, right? First of all, what I said was all true. And everybody in this community knows it. And it's not like I called him. I mean, I think during the entire 1 hour podcast, I may have used one profane word, but apparently it is harassment to call someone an alleged pedophile. Apparently it is harassment to call someone dishonest. I'm just like, listen, my mind is still blown from the results of that case. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know what? I better appeal this because there's something not right here. Something's not right. Just because you don't like something and just because you are insulted by something, that does not mean that it is cyberbullying or that you have harassed someone. You know, we could do with in this community a bit more truth telling. And so, yes, I get up here every single day, and part of my job is to tell the truth. And I say I tell the unfiltered truth because I don't have no time to pretty it up. Who has time for that? Stacy Ann, good morning. Amaro, good morning. I like your name. Unruly. Yes, they want to tell us we're unruly. We're rude. We're this, we're that. Well, guess what? We didn't get our freedoms that we have now, which include our freedom of speech, right? Just because we were nice and sweet people. We had to fight for it. We had to protest for it. So it's like hi with a J. So Jai. There we go. Good morning, Cecilia. Yes, good folks. You are all here for some truth telling this morning. So let's get right to it. You got that right. The truth has no space in this world. That's what some people will tell you. Oh, Catherine, you know the score, honey. It's because it's me. I look at someone hard, and that's enough reason to drag me to court. That's the reality of what we're dealing with here. But you know what? I have got to have as much stamina, as much desire to keep fighting the DPP as they have to keep fighting me. Yes, they have a bottomless pit of resources, but I have tenacity. And I mean, they may think that they have tenacity, but they have never met a Caymanian like me before. And I don't care if they convict me 1,000,000 times, I will get up 1,000,001 times and still fight them. So they are trying to control me. There's no two ways about that. The very last question that the prosecution asked me in that case was, regardless of the outcome of this case, you're not going to stop, are you? And I said to her, is that what this is about? Is that why I'm here? Not to punish me for some wrongdoing that I supposedly did, but to stop and prevent me from doing something in the future. I mean, it was amazing that she said that and that the judge somehow allowed that to just skirt right over his head. Bruce, what I would say is anything that has to do with me becomes a matter of national urgency, and I will be charged in the exact same situations as other people who will not be charged. So if you want to call that targeting, I say that they have a lot of time for me. then it is what it is. Obviously, they need a willing complainant, and that is very easy to find in the Cayman Islands, especially when people are hiding from the truth. So I'll give you an example. When we did this show on Thursday afternoon, the fact that the article went up, I had a police officer call me and say, "Oh, you've used someone's photo." So I've called the DPP's office, and they said that that's enough to take you to court. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like what next? The level of how they are trying to test the boundaries of what is criminal in this country is just shocking and quite frankly unbelievable. So Bruce, if you want to call it targeting, I mean, I don't really care what you call it. It is obvious that the DPP's office has a special agenda and a special place in their heart for me. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday because remember last week I was also reminiscing about how it all started almost 10 years ago, probably about 10 years ago with the DPP's office. And in 10 years, I have had more cases than anybody on this island. Some of Cayman's hardcore criminals who have murdered countless people have not had more cases than me at this point. I'm actually going to check with the criminal registry and I'm going to get the count of the actual number of cases. But now we're pushing 8, 9 cases for sure, maybe even 10 that I have had in the past 10 years. They've gotten one conviction out of that many cases. Now you tell me how I go my entire life being a law-abiding citizen, and all of a sudden in my late 30s, I become a rogue where I'm going to steal a dog. I'm going to try to defraud the government. It's like, it's not even like one thing. You know how some criminals, you see them in court, like, okay, they're in court for theft again, or it's another allegation they were smuggling drugs. By the third time they get hauled into court for smuggling drugs, you go, maybe they have a case here. Maybe this person really is a drug smuggler and they just have gotten away with it a couple times. But for me, it's all over the place in terms of the charges. So not only have I woken up and decided to become a hardcore criminal all of a sudden, this is what they want to convince people, but I'm doing it like every facet of life. And it just doesn't even make any logical sense. It's crazy. And so since Cayman Mall Road began over 3 years ago, we have tested the boundaries. Yes, we have. I'm the first to admit it. But what is wrong with testing the boundaries? What is wrong with saying, you know what, elsewhere in the world, everybody else has these freedoms to say X, Y, Z? Bruce, truth seeking here. If I had done to the governor what, what's his name? Mario Rankin had done, where I had sent out this voice note cursing and carrying on, right? Do you honestly believe that I'd be sitting here today not facing some charges? Do you honestly believe that they would not have got me for fake news? What's the other charge that I'm up against now because I used profanity? That voice note that was laced with profanity. I forgot, I lost count, maybe 13 or 12 F-bombs. But yet that's not disorderly conduct. It's just, listen to me. It is so obvious now that all I can do is chuckle. Barry Lee, thank you so much for tuning in. Barry Lee said this is not Cayman that I know. Cayman has changed. Anyone that takes over in the house. Well, I tell you what, buenos dias, Elizabeth. Barry Lee, I'm convinced that this has always been the Cayman Islands. Now, you guys know that I lived in the US for 15 years out of my life, right? So I am used to a different standard, I gotta be honest with you. And when I returned to the Cayman Islands at the time, I had my friends saying to me, oh, we don't have any freedoms in the workplace. We don't have this, we don't have that. I kept thinking to myself, I don't know if that's true. This is what I was saying at the time as a newcomer. I would say, are you sure that this is the case? So I was questioning my own Caymanians because I hadn't experienced anything like this before. What do you mean you can't speak your mind? That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Well, I then began to work in the Cayman Islands. And I began to see what was really happening here. And I got to tell you the God's honest truth. What people are saying to me is what it was. And as a Caymanian, you have your place in this community, and you have to know where your place is. And there's certain things that you cannot say and you cannot do. And the irony of it all is that you have less rights than people who come here after you, right? They don't have the freedoms that you have. I'm sorry, they have more freedoms than you have. And to me, that's just shocking, unbelievable. And so when I first returned from abroad, I was in a state of disbelief. I'm thinking, there's no way I could come to the Cayman Islands as a foreigner, someone literally off the plane, working in a law firm, and I'm able to say and do certain things that my Caymanian counterparts cannot say and do without repercussions. That's how I thought in my head as someone having lived in the US for 15 years. And I can tell you what, I was dead wrong. Absolutely 1,000% dead wrong. I admit it. I had no clue. Good morning. Okay, Bruce, good question. Why aren't you participating in the government press briefings? Well, Bruce, because the government, the elected officials, GIS has gotten instructions from them to not allow me to participate. So when you see Alden McLaughlin, you need to ask him that question. Ask the unity government why they have refused to invite me. Now, when he was asked the question in the Legislative Assembly by Kenneth Bryan, he claimed that it's not his choice, and he read off responses from GIS. So GIS, a government agency, is going to tell the premier of the Cayman Islands what to do. That's what he basically said. And they have set up this criteria that no one knows where they got it from and what it's all about. Now, here's the irony of the situation, Bruce. Here's what's coming down the pipeline. The government has decided that they are going to set up a government, what do they call it? A government accrediting body for the media. So the government will tell you who media is, and they will accredit the media. I've never heard, talk about state controlled, talk about Russia, China, Iran, Iraq. This is the direction that we're going in this country, folks. So the government, after 40 something years of supposedly free and independent press, now want to tell us who the press is and how it's going to be defined. If you don't think that has anything to do with the fact that Cayman Mall Road is on the scene, believe me, you better wake up. This has everything to do with it. Everything to do with the fact that we get information and we get tips before anybody else. And when we put it out there, remember during the COVID-19, we didn't even have to attend the press briefings to know what changes were coming and what was coming down the pipeline. And what the premier said, oh, it's not good for us to be disclosing it before he does. Why? We say, tune into the press briefing because the government will be providing all the details, but we knew when additional lockdown measures were coming. And so when we felt confident in those sources, and when we say confident, we mean 97% confident, we're never 100%, we put it out there and the government didn't like it. So now they want to have state-controlled, state-accredited government media. It's unbelievable. Bruce goes on to say the one where the premier was engaged in an exercise of smoke and mirrors when it comes to meaningful constitutional reform. Well, good morning, Lorna. Thank you so much for tuning in. Brita says, just like America, sounds like America. Fergie says, why is it Cayman is fighting against Caymanians? Well, I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Catherine says nothing has changed in the workplace. Lord have mercy. One of the reasons why is because there are a lot of people in positions of power who are not Caymanians and they don't care about Caymanians. Let us have a look at this. And this, none of this was on the agenda this morning, but you know what? We go with the flow here in this program. So let's talk about what I mean. Police. What percentage of the police do you think are actually Caymanian? And listen, I have nothing against foreign nationals coming to the Cayman Islands and taking up opportunities that are afforded to them. What I have an issue with, however, just like I think Americans should protect what they have, Jamaicans should protect what they have, is no one should be able to come into your country and get an opportunity to succeed and do things that the locals, the natives of that country, do not get. To me, that is problematic. And it creates a system of injustices whereby people begin to feel disenfranchised, right? And so, yes, it is a problem when this happens. Yes, it is a problem when 90% of the police force are from Jamaica, the UK, and other places in the world. There's no reason why we should have the police force, the judiciary, right? The DPP's office. Go and look at the DPP's office and the staff complements that they have there. And you will see exactly what I'm talking about, folks. Honestly, let me have a look here and I'll tell you. The employees at the DPP's office, who are they? I think they may have 3 Caymanians working there. The person in charge is from the UK. The second person in charge is from another Caribbean office. The third person in charge is from the UK. Where are they Caymanians? They're doing traffic court. Right? That's where they are. So, do I think that there's an imbalance? Of course there is. I might particularly insulted when people come to the Cayman Islands and make us look bad and still tell us that we can't speak up in our own country. Of course I am. Take, for example, this young lady again. I'm not trying to belabor the point here about Thursday's show, right? But this young lady is married to a Caymanian, right? This is our jackass of the day, which, by the way, you guys know that I do prefer the term donkey. And I've been trying to work in my head how I can use that without infringing on the Breakfast Club, because they have a donkey of the day episode, right? So I don't want to infringe on their copyright or whatever, but I think the way to do it, and I could be wrong, but I'm going to try this and see, is change it to the Caymanian way of saying it. So we don't say American donkey. We say donkey. That person's a donkey, right? So I think if I change it phonetically and I do it differently, it's possible that I could get away with using the word donkey instead of jackass. To me, really, a donkey and a jackass is the exact same thing. But I do prefer the colloquial term donkey, which is what we would more or less use versus jackass. Nonetheless, it's the same thing. So this is someone who is married into the Cayman Islands. I don't know anything about her background. I don't know where she comes from or whatever. But she lives a very, very, see, Irvin says donkey can't work. Jackass is better. I know I'm like of two minds here, but she's married, into the Cayman Islands. Good for her. Found herself a nice little Caymanian boy, right? And then he will sit back and say, well, She's got to have every rights in the world. And if a Caymanian says something against her, the Caymanian's going to be wrong and she's going to be right. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with if you're Caymanian or not. If you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you're right, you're right. So when your spouse that you have imported into the Cayman Islands that has been openly accepted by the local community here is wrong, then you need to say to them, honey, not only are you wrong, but allow me to introduce you to a little bit of a cultural lesson here in the Cayman Islands. It is insulting to Caymanians who believe in certain things, right? To allow an injustice like this to slide by without addressing it. And so when you get on your high horse and you lie about certain things and you say certain things, don't expect Caymanians like Sandy Hill to sit back and take the cockamamie story. It simply isn't going to work. But as Caymanians, we become our own worst enemy. Now, this is where I have a problem with us folks. We would rather jump up and defend someone we don't know anything about. And I'm going to give you guys a perfect example here in a second. Defend people that we know nothing about in the name of, oh, well, you know, they're nice people. Maybe we got it wrong. Maybe this, maybe that. It's like, no, fool. We didn't get it wrong. We got it 100% correct. And not only did we get it 100% correct, folks, but the truth has a way of setting you free. It's unfortunate. And I told you guys before, I have been married to foreign nationals twice. I have never given my husbands, one was an American, one is a Jamaican, the impression that you can come to the Cayman Islands and say and do whatever you want to Caymanians in particular. And there are no consequences for that. Listen, my husband well knows he is a Jamaican. And when it comes to Jamaican politics, I don't get involved in their business. I do my best to stay out of the situation, out of the mix. And not to say that he couldn't have an opinion about what happens here in the Cayman Islands, but there is a respectful way in which you do that. And there's a way in which you do not castigate Caymanians and you talk down on Caymanians and you look down on Caymanians, especially when you're married to one. And you could not expect me in good conscience to sit back and somehow say that that's okay. I believe in being an equal opportunity bullshit caller. So in other words, if I'm going to call up my own people, which I do every single day, sometimes I got to call up myself, folks. That's the hard, cold truth. What is going to stop me from calling out other people? Here is a perfect example from the weekend. Here's this fella. His name is, oh gosh, what the heck is his name again? Andy McAlpine. So Andy apparently was arrested on Friday. So he was en route to Canada when the feds had the plane land in Orlando and took him off the plane. Actually, they took everybody off the plane and they double checked everybody. But really and truly, it is so painstakingly obvious that they were going after Andy. Now, I don't know who Andy is, but I received phone calls, messages through Instagram. Oh, Andy's my uncle. Andy's my this. Andy's my that. You need to take down this story on Andy. And I said, why? Why am I taking the story down on Andy? Yeah. Yeah, give me a reason why. Let me hear your logic, and then I will decide, not you, whether or not the story is coming down. So you know the first thing they always want to say is, "Oh, it's fake news." Hmm. Right. Not that it really is. But the logic is, if I tell you it's fake news and you believe it's fake news, then somehow that means that you're going to rush and take it down. I said, okay. Well, then, my dear, tell me what is the issue with the story. Because if it is fake news and there's something that is incorrect in the story, we are more than happy to fix it. So, what is the issue exactly? Oh, can't tell me what the issue is? Huh. That's strange. How do you call something fake news if you can't even tell me what's wrong with the story? Well, it's like the minor stuff. Um, the people on board weren't told not to say anything. They were told to consider his family and have a heart. And then I'm like, what are you saying to me? What kind of foolishness is this? Well, he didn't really ask him to not take off his luggage. He was like, "Can my watch make it, my prized possession, make it to Canada?" So let me try to understand what you're telling me here. He was arrested. That's true. He was arrested by the FBI. That's true. And it's a fake story. How? Because you think some minor detail about a watch versus a piece of luggage somehow makes a difference? No. If this was a Caymanian, nobody would have been up in arms. Oh, this is fake news story, take it down. Well, very few people, let me put it that way. Right? People of privilege get an okay. They get a pass. So it's a situation where he's a nice guy. Right. Ted Bundy was also a nice guy. There are lots of nice people out there who do things that make you scratch your head and who do horrific things at that. Oh, I pray with him and his wife. I go to church with them. Okay. And once again, what does that have to do with the price of rice in China? Not a damn thing. The only question in my mind is, was the man arrested or was he not arrested? So Lorna says, no, disagree. People make best of their opportunities and excel. There's no one's fault when people come in and work harder and get to the top of positions because they earn it. Usually the job is posted. And if they don't have anyone qualified or they don't apply, then this one, a lot of spot for outsiders. Well, Lorna, if that was actually what was happening in the Cayman Islands, you would have a valid point. But that isn't what's happening in the Cayman Islands. And I could give you countless examples, Lorna. So why don't I just give you a few to highlight the point? When you have non-Caymanians, and even when you have Caymanians in the position of hiring who are being controlled like puppets and told what to do, what you are saying makes absolutely no sense because it's not the facts of the situation. That is what would happen in an ideal world. What you have happening in the Cayman Islands is nepotism, who you know. A few examples that we've already mentioned on this show in case you missed it. The prison directors, and I say directors plural because there's allegations that the one now has hired a chef that he knew back from in the UK. There was a Caymanian, Lorna, you with me here? Because I want you to hear what I'm about to say. There was a Caymanian who applied for the job, who was more qualified than the current guy, had all sorts of culinary expertise and experience, and a master's degree, which the current guy does not have. She asked for a certain salary on the pay scale and was told, no, we cannot pay you that. They reopened the position, got his friend to apply, said, this is what you need to say in your interview. These are the questions that are coming. This is that, this is whatever. Not only did he get the job with less qualifications, Lorna, you said whoever works harder and is more qualified gets the job. Here are examples where that is a bold-faced untruth. So not only is he less qualified, less degrees, less culinary expertise. I can't remember all the culinary words at the moment. And he got the job. Here's the kicker. Get your Hennessy ready at 8:06 in the morning. He got the same salary that the Caymanian had asked for and was told, no, you can't have that salary with your master's degree and all of these qualifications, but we allow the English guy with no master's degree and fewer qualifications to come here and get the job and the salary. That's one example. Let me give you another one from Her Majesty's Palace, since we're on the topic of prison. The government was sued some years back by senior prison officers that they had been passed over for promotions and for positions that should have been given to them. And guess what? They won their case. Why? Once again, the prison director brought a lady here who had been working at one point for him as a nanny or some shenanigans. There was email documentation between him and HR. I need you people to pay attention, because when I say these things, it's like you don't want to believe me, but the pudding is in, what is it? What's the saying about the pudding? The proof is in the pudding. HR manager at Caymanian. She was instructed to do up a contract for this person. This is who you are going to hire. Person has less qualifications than others. The court themselves found that to be the case. So, Lorna, this is now where when you make a statement like that, it does kind of get under my skin a little bit because it's completely inaccurate. It's not a correct statement. But I'm not done. There are countless examples of this happening. And the most egregious part is that it happens in the civil service. So those two jobs that I've mentioned is civil servants, huh? So she comes into the job. Now imagine you get the benefit of a little favoritism because you knew this guy back in the UK. So now you get the job. You would think to yourself, wow, if I get this job, I'm going to come here and keep my head down. You said, Lorna, that you got to work hard, right? So you're going to come here and you're going to work hard, keep your head down, work hard, and do what you got to do. All right. That sounds like a formula for success. I agree with that. Do you really think that that is what happened? No. Let me tell you what happened. She comes here and starts having relations, sexual relations, it was alleged, with a prisoner. Okay. And not only does she not get fired for that, the person who attempted to bring out the evidence to prove what was happening was fired from her job. I want you guys to listen to what I'm telling you here this morning. Aduki Joseph Caesar, who is a deputy director of rehabilitation at the prison, has now been fired or suspended from her job on 2 occasions. The last time was last year, October. So now we're going into a year. CMR was the only ones to report on this case, on her suspension, the last time. The time before that, she fought the government and won her case because the government did it wrong. So twice in the space of 5 years, Aduki has been suspended from her job. Not for any wrongdoing, because clearly they keep getting it wrong. The first time she took their behinds to court, and the court ordered, you got it wrong. Now you've got to pay this woman all of her back pay for the 2 years that you had her outside of a job. Now, people, I want you to try to comprehend what I'm trying to say to you, right? We've got a prison system. Northwood Prison is full of prisoners. That's what it's there for. And prisoners need rehabilitation. And the prison directors keep going after the deputy director of rehabilitation, which I should mention is a woman who is extremely well qualified. So when she's not there, what do you think happens to the rehabilitative programs that would fall under her leadership? They fall to the wayside. Nothing gets done. Prisoners are not being offered these programs. And so there continues to be a break in their ability to get some degree of reform going in the prison, because the prison directors and other senior officers at the prison are somehow threatened by a strong Caribbean woman who is well-spoken and who speaks her mind, and do not allow these guys, because she is in a male-dominated work environment, to run circles around her. So every opportunity they get, there goes poor Dookie out the door again. So let me wrap up what I'm telling you, right? This woman right here has been suspended. First, she was fired from her first job. And I put the link here of the second one, which is almost a year now. And I'm going to give you some background information on that. And we are in the midst of digging up some more on this story. Because the first time the government did it wrong. They got it wrong. And it looks like they did it wrong again. They had to back pay her. They had to pay her all sorts of compensation for the wrongdoing of firing her unfairly the first time. So guess what? A woman gets to have sexual relations with somebody in prison, and that is okay. She doesn't get reprimanded. Nothing happens to her. In fact, she gets promoted. This is the irony of it. She gets promoted, folks, for a new job above others who had been there in the prison and were more qualified than her. And when Aduki, the young lady in this photo, says, hold on a second, this isn't right. Her complaint, her official complaint, was ignored by the prison director at the time. So she goes about trying to collect the evidence of the sexting, the texting, whatever you want to call it, that was happening in this woman's office. The oral, what would we call it without getting in too much trouble here now? You guys know what I mean, the BJs. If you need to know what that means, look it up, folks. Yes. Legal reform. Listen to me. Kathy Ann Wilkes has announced her candidacy for West Bay Central. Now, I already told you folks here on this program, straight up, There's some people who need to be elected to public office, and there's some who do not. And I can tell you, Kathy needs to be given an opportunity. She is going up against Captain Eugene. Yes, he is a heavy hitter, but I'm going to be the first one to say it today. I would endorse Kathy Ann Wilkes 1,000%. This is a woman with 12 years of legal experience. She has worked for the Law Commission. She has worked as a paralegal. And you know what? She was sitting in the legal department, wasting her time trying to get articles so that she could be called to the bar. And honey, she would be sitting there for God knows how long before that's going to happen. Good morning, Robert. How are you, my friend? So this is the cold, hard truth, people. If you're not ready for it, then you probably need to go and watch something else. Watch Peppa Pig or something else. My daughter loves Peppa Pigs. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Brita says call them mules or burros instead of jackasses. But you see, mules or burros is not something we would say in Cayman. We're going to call you either donkey or jackass. Those are two things that honestly, that's what we're going to call you. So maybe we just leave it as jackass. And I mean, you know, it is what it is. I'm going to give you some other examples here of what is happening in this country. So good luck to Kathy. Give her your vote, folks, if you vote in West Bay Central. We need some change in this country. And the only way we're going to get change is by shaking things up a little bit. Now, as you guys know, here in this program, we have some corporate sponsors. I want to give a big shout out to people like Burger King, Popeyes, Miracle Brokers, even this young man, Ricardo. Remember, he was coming on doing Fit Fridays. We need to link up with Ricardo again. I've got some of my own companies here, Roque, that are helped to sponsor this program, because without our corporate sponsors, we would be able to do less of an effective job. And what I always find amazing is when we ruffle a few feathers, as we sometimes do here in Cayman Mall Road, the first thing people want to do, and it's sad that it's often our own people, is they want to run to the corporate sponsors and say, how can you sponsor Cayman Mall Road? Well, you know how they can do it, folks? Because despite the few naysayers and despite the few people that think if we don't get any sponsors that somehow that's going to stop the gravy train on Cayman Mall Road, they don't know, honey. They really don't know. Despite all of that, right? They wish to contact our sponsors and say, don't advertise. And then our sponsors look at the numbers and they're like, I get thousands of views on Cayman Mall Road. I get people when she puts up the Burger King ad that go, oh, I feel like a Burger King sandwich today. And so it gets results. Imagine that. So yes, Lorna, even when you're qualified, even when you get results, let me throw this in the mix. Some years back, I saw a job advertised as a social media coordinator or something, right? So it was for a real estate company. And basically you're just handling all of their social media stuff. And I applied for the job. Now, you know, this is one of the tricks of the trade is they'll put up a job description that they think no one can ever reach. So they put in these certifications and these degrees that are like out of this world crazy. And they had in there, oh, you needed to have a diploma in social media marketing. Hold on a second here. I believe Sandy Hill has just such a degree. Is that right? Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Let me see here. Let me see if I can find it. Just a second. I'm going to help you guys out here. Right. It looks like we do have such a degree. Wow. Yes. So in addition to the degree from the University of South Florida, Bachelor's of Arts. Now let me kind of flip the screen around. It's all crooked here at the moment. So that was the first degree. Then we've got a law degree. And by the way, the Bachelor's of Arts was with honors. Then we've got a law degree. And then we have Masters of Public Administration. So people say to me, this is from 2006 when I got this degree. People say, you have a degree, a master's in public administration? Yes, that's why I have an interest in how government works and politics, the administration of public affairs. Then I also have a postgraduate master's certificate of specialization in human resource development. And I have been a trainer and teaching people for over 20 years. So people go, what? Yes. And look at this next piece of paper, a professional practice from the Legal Advisory Council, 2011. Still can't get articles. It don't make no difference how many pieces of paper you have in Cayman, folks. If you don't have the correct connections, you will never go anywhere and you will not get articles. But then look at this. In 2015, this is someone who just doesn't stop. A diploma in digital marketing. What? With distinction. So when I applied for that job, which was like, I could do it with one eye shut, people. And then to have someone tell me, oh, well, we're not looking for the, I was like, please, what you're not looking for is you're not looking for Cayman. Why don't you just be honest? If you could at least be honest and stop trying to fool the people because we ain't that stupid, that would be one thing. It would save us from wasting our time. So one of the reasons why government has created this Jobs Cayman website is because they are supposed to now be filtering through the job ads. They want everybody to funnel their ads through them so that they can filter through it. Now, here's the problem. Here's where the real problem lies. Unfortunately, there are people, and I get this from a good source, who are exempt from applying or having to go through this mandatory job portal. Wait a second. What sense does that make? If you're going to create a system that is supposed to create equality, right, for all Caymanians and workers, you can't inflate a job description. And let me tell you something. Cindy, thank you for your comments. Rosanna, welcome to the program. When people sit down and tell me that this isn't happening, I'm also going to rely on my inside knowledge from being on the inside of these organizations. So a number of years ago, I worked for a company called CMZ. And recently, I had to chuckle at last month when the conviction came down for the Matthew Leslie case. This guy named Gavin, what's his name? Huckle, or whatever his name is. I think that's his name. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, he worked for the same company. And he still works for them. And he jumped on his bandwagon on the Compass and said, good, she needs to be convicted. She's a horrible person. And I'm thinking, this boy not really trying to go for me because we work for the same company and he is unbelievably crooked. Okay. And it's like people know that you know information and yet they have the audacity to open their mouths. I mean, criminal information on these jackasses. And they have the audacity to open their mouths, but, oh, they're glad I got convicted. I'm a horrible person. No, Bobo. You're the jackass and you're the horrible person for doctoring and cooking the books for CMZ while they were here in the economic zone, for throwing the previous owner under the bus when the SEC and the feds went and arrested him and his family. And now you're back working with the same family who seem to be as clueless as they can possibly be. So Mr. Heckle, I believe his first name is I'll tell you in a second. I'm going to look him up and tell you in a second. I don't want to get the first name wrong because we want to know exactly who we are talking about here, folks. It's people like him that think that they can come to the Cayman Islands, break our laws, involved in all sorts of money laundering, hiding of financial stuff, hiding in the economic zone, right? Then we find out, oh, They're not even supposed to be in the economic zone, because not just the economic zone, they're not even supposed to be registered in the Cayman Islands. Why? Because they have had issues in the past with the SEC. And the SEC in the United States of America says you are never to be a director on a company again. So it's not just jobs that we got an issue with. We allow corporate owners and directors to come here and to get involved in organizations and companies, and they are dirty as they want to be. So yes, nobody should be defending this man here, folks. You don't know his history. Go and research it. This man has been up to shenanigans for years. He was doing all kind of fake trades, pumping and dumping of penny stocks. The documentation is there. He has settled a lawsuit where he was using a client's credit card to fund his own personal trips and his own expenses that had nothing to do with that client. People, read. One of the reasons why they are afraid of certain people is because, number one, you can dig up information on their behinds. And number two, you are intelligent enough to understand what it is that you're reading. And I'm telling you, this is why I tell people, don't make anybody tell you any differently when it comes to your education. Get that piece of paper at any cost, because they cannot stop you once you can think for yourself. They will do their best. Trust me, they will do the most. They don't want to give you the scholarship. They're going to try to hold you back, but you fight tooth and nail to get it. So this is what I'm talking about, folks. These are some of the challenges that we face in this country. And as a Caymanian, I won't ever sit back and allow anyone to disrespect my people, who often are working as hard as they can. We welcome all, and we should be respectful to people. But we also need to be truth seekers and truth tellers. Pretending that we live in some alternative university is not going to help us build a country that anybody is really going to want to be a part of. Dean Shulak talks about corruption. At our core, this is what's happening. They use Caymanians to hire who they want to hire. They use Caymanians to fire who they want to hire. Sophia, I am doing fantastic, girl. How are you? There's a case in court this morning that I will be going to and watching. And the charge is, listen to this. This may be the first time I've ever seen this charge, but the charge is lying to immigration about the fact that a Caymanian applied for a job or did not apply for a job when they did. I'm shocked, not because it's happening, because it happens every single day they lie about it. I am shocked that finally somebody's taken to court for it, because that's the unusual part. It's not that it's unusual that it happens. It's unusual that they're actually trying to hold somebody accountable for it. That's the only part of that story that's shocking. So I'll be in court today checking that out. Try to remember this guy's name here so I can give you a little bit more story. But let's talk about some other cases, Lorna, about what else has been happening in this country. Here's another one. There's a young lady. Oh gosh, what's her name now? She is, I think, Ebanks. What's her name? She's now the HR manager over at NAU. Not NAU. The Roads Authority. What's it called again? And National Roads Authority? NRA. Yes. All right. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what her name is now. I want to say she's an Ebanks. Anyway, her name will come to me. She worked for government for at least 15 or 16 years in core government. She applied, Sheena Ebanks, that's her name. She applied for a job. Now pay attention, Lorna, because you know what I'm telling you. This is the hard, cold truth, and this woman has won her case. Sheena applied for a job in government or some sort of education, HR position or whatever, right? So right now, she is the Chief Human Resources Officer at the Cayman Islands Roads Authority. So Sheena applies for this job. She's been in HR for 10, 15 years, whatever. And she was a finalist for the job. Her, Samantha Bennett, two Caymanian women were the top finalists. And then there was another guy who happens to be from, I can't remember where, I think it was Canada or the UK, one of those places. Right. So Sheena applies, Samantha applies, I'm sure tons of other people applied, but they made it to the top. Somehow the other guy gets the job. And everybody's like, really? So, you know, in government now, if somebody else gets a job, you can FOI. I've done this before. Where I've applied for a job and you FOI it, you can see how you scored compared to other people, right? So how you scored on the interview questions, because they might have a panel interviewing you and each person will give you a score based on presentation, how you answer the questions, the whole 9 yards. So lo and behold, it is discovered that Sheena scored the highest on the job overall. Samantha scored the second highest on the job. And then this other guy scored somewhere lower down. Now, mind you, Samantha and Sheena have master's degrees, all these degrees, HR qualifications. This dude has no degree. And he still gets the job, right? Now, not only does he get the job over two qualified Caymanians, listen to what I'm about to tell you, folks. This is the cold, hard truth this morning. I know y'all thinking like, what the hell did Sandy drink in her water? She must have got it spiked with something. It's spiked with the cold, hard truth, folks. That's what it's spiked with. So, now you gotta imagine Sheena's shock when she sees the results that she actually came first and the dude still gets a job with less qualifications, no degree, no master's, nothing. And the little piece of paper he did have, here's the best part, he got because of being on the job, because he was acting in this position and someone must have said to him, well, you ain't got no qualifications. So if you want to apply for the job permanently, get a certificate. And that's what he did. So these other ladies have degrees, multiple degrees and certificates, and this guy still ends up getting the job. Now, this is where you get pissed off when you've been working hard your entire professional life. So Alex says working hard is important. But it's not what is going to always get you the job in the Cayman Islands. I'm telling you, more often than not, it isn't. Unless you're working hard at something else, on somebody else. So he gets the job. Sheena decides, so I like what Alric has said, fight for your rights. Yeah, speak up. That's the thing to do. So Sheena decides to sue the government. She says, hold on a second here, this ain't right. So she sues the government. It's called a judicial review application, folks. Not only does she sue the government, the chief officer of the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, and Culture, blah, blah, blah. David Bailey, because that's named the dude who got the job over her, was also named. The Civil Service Appeals Commission. They're all sued. Sheena wins the first one. Let me just bring up the document here, because I know sometimes y'all don't be believing me when I'm telling you the cold hard truth. But you know, I always say, folks, have your receipts ready. This is cause number. Let me just pull this up here now. Hold on one little itty bitty. And I was saying, before I get too deep into the one with Sheena now, because there's so many examples of this. Big shout out to Miracle Brokers this morning. Beautiful, gorgeous. Miracle Brokers will help you bring in your vehicles, your whatever you need. Ones that can fit on a ship, folks, they're bringing it for you. All of your furniture, household goods, appliances, please give them a call. They will link you up. So she sues them. This is cause number 195 of 2008. And basically, she sued because they got it wrong. So the Public Service Management Law, 2008, supposedly tells them this is your guidebook, this is a rule book that you're supposed to apply when you're hiring civil servants. And trust me, they throw that out the window when they feel like it. So the facts are easy enough, right? So persons shall be placed on the short list only on the basis of their qualifications, skills, knowledge, and experience, and if the appointing officer is of the opinion that no other candidate satisfies the requirements for the position. The appointing officer must re-notify the vacancy under subsection 4 as if it were a new appointment. So, Lorna, this is where we talk about, this is what's supposed to happen. All candidates on the short list are to be interviewed by an interview panel established by the appointing officer and using a comparable interviewing approach for each applicant. The interview panel is to establish the preferred candidate, that being the candidate that has the best mix of qualifications, skills, knowledge, and experience for the position. And then they tell you what it should be based on. Number 1, information provided by the applicants. Number 2, the results of the interviews. Number 3, the personal knowledge of the persons on the interview panel as declared to the panel. Number 4, any other information the interview panel considers relevant. But listen to this now, folks. Any other information the interview panel considers, but where after applying the criteria, 2 or more persons rank broadly at the same level, Caymanians shall be given preference. This is in subsection 8 of this law. And what I can tell you, that's section 40, subsection 8, that is not being applied. So our civil service, the people who were hiring for that position, I don't know who the panel was exactly, but they got it wrong. And they gave this guy, David Bailey, over the job over 2 Caymanian women who qualified more than him. And in their own assessment, they ranked those 2 women higher. And he still got the job. So when Sheena had the balls then to appeal the decision, and initially she won, I can't remember what the first appeal step was, but she actually won that. The government, our government, I want you to understand what I'm saying. This is the same government that wants to fight people like me. So on some level, Bruce, I shouldn't really feel all that special. If they're going to fight poor Sheena who has towed the line her entire life. Why is this big truck outside my window today? Construction in the neighborhood, folks. Who has towed the line her entire life and who has gotten it right, who has done all the things that a good little civil servant is supposed to do. So you follow the rules. You work hard, like Alric has said. That will get you promoted, they tell you. You don't rock the boat. Everybody knows Sheena is a nice enough person, but she doesn't rock the boat. She just does what she's supposed to do. She just goes along, does her job, because that's going to be enough, they tell you. Well, folks, there's a reason why I can stand here and tell you that they're lying to you. And whether you speak up or not, that is a choice you will make. But not speaking up doesn't help you. This is a perfect example of that. You will go your entire life and not speak up and think that if you toe the line, even as a civil servant, you will get the jobs that you deserve. You will get the promotions that you deserve. And it is cases like this that prove that is a lie. I feel like I'm on an episode of Jerry Springer. You are not the father. That's a lie. You will not get the job, folks. They have been lying to you about the fact that they will treat you fairly. They will give you jobs because you are qualified and because you have worked hard. At this point, Samantha Bennett was second in command over at immigration. She was a deputy director. As far as I'm concerned, this is a step down for her, but I know that Samantha loves human resources and she wanted to get back in dealing with just HR. So they turned them both down and gave it to some guy named David Bailey. No master's degree, no degrees really, no certifications. Well, some little HR certification, and that was it. So then our government are going to use the people's money and resources and fight Sheena. So it says here, the chief officer sought by his conduct to create a process that gave Mr. Bailey an unfair advantage. Mr. Bailey was acting in the post for a period of 7 months. And before that, there's no evidence that he previously managed a large team or budget. Say what? 7 months. So in 7 months, he can take a job away from people like Samantha Bennett, who has managed and done HR processes for almost her entire professional career. 7 months of experience. Sheena, who's been in government for 10, 15 years, can't hold a candle up to him. And I bet you our chief officer in this job was a Caymanian. See, this is the bullshit that I'm telling you about. That if I don't take my low blood pressure tablets every day, I would be going off on these people. How does this even make any sense, Lorna? You see what I'm telling you? This is straight up ridiculous on another level. So the average Caymanian is like, what the hell? I got people who are not from here, who are into nepotism, protecting their own, bringing in the friends, bringing in the dog sitter, giving them position and management at the prison, bringing in my personal friends and acquaintances. This is what people do. People are human beings. I get that. So not only will those people fight against you, but on top of that, you're going to have your own Caymanians fighting against you to give other people the job. Whoa, this is mind-blowing. Miss Darlene Manzanares, I'm so glad you're here because I want to talk about Miss Darlene's son as another proper example of someone being qualified and being passed up for the job. Darlene, I hope you're still tuned in because I don't want you to move. Folks, this is not the conversation we had planned this morning. But you know, sometimes you are led in a specific direction and you go there and you address the issues. And that's what we're doing today. So Mr. Bailey was given an unfair advantage after only 7 months on the job, no previous experience managing a large team or budget. Given 7 months, my apologies, not even 7 years, 7 months experience managing a large team or budget as the sole basis against the plaintiff who scored 4.5 points above and others that scored above the second respondent is used as a is I think it's supposed to be in use of an unfair process to achieve a predetermined and set result on an unfair basis. Further, the second respondent, now that would be Mr. Bailey, scored the fourth highest of 5 shortlisted candidates. So let me understand what we're saying now, folks. He didn't score just underneath Sheena. He didn't score just underneath Samantha. There were 3 other people. No. Yes, if he's number 4, who were above him. So he's 4 out of the top 5 that were shortlisted for an interview. In other words, he kind of barely slid in. Right? Now it gets even better. The second respondent, this again is Mr. David Bailey, was interviewed by the chief officer, and at that time, one clear subordinate of his, along with a lower ranked employee of a subordinate department. Wow. So one chief officer and 2 subordinates, one in his own department and one of a subordinate department. You people think I'm making this stuff up? These court cases are available publicly. You can go and do a court search. You can look at these things. It says here they failed to consider section 41.7, which says that after applying the criteria, 2 or more persons ranked broadly at the same level, the Caymanians shall be given preference. The only thing they want to claim that he had over these ladies, the non-Caymanian candidate had experience with a large team, which he only got by the acting position that government allowed him to go into for 7 months. This case, as far as I know, is still not settled. They're still fighting her. And you know what the end result so far has been? Sheena, after being with government for 10, 15 years, has left the core civil service because of this. So we have lost a highly qualified Caymanian in the civil service because of their shenanigans and how they treated her like a second-class citizen. Poor Lorna. Yes, now, Lorna, I didn't mean to shock you. I'm just telling you the cold, hard truth. Alric, thank you for your support. Now, Lorna, I'm going to give you one more example. All right, here we go. All right. Lorna, put on your seatbelt. I want to talk about Felix Manzanares for a second here. my friend Felix. Young man. Felix is working at Cashwiz. Now, I told you guys about this guy, Gavin Heckel, who thought that he could come to me on a Compass Facebook page and that I wouldn't respond to his salacious ass. Clearly, he got me confused with somebody else. So I believe that's his name. I think it's Gavin. I'm gonna just try to look him up a little bit here. I kind of think that's his name. Yeah. Let me see. Gavin. I think is it Gavin? I can't remember. But anyway, it'll soon come to me. Don't worry. One thing I do is I keep records, folks. That's another important thing you must do. So Felix worked for Cashwiz. You guys might remember when he was there. And Felix, let me just see here. Actually, let me see if I can find any information here. He was the store manager at Cashwiz, right? And so I worked in the back office. Now, let me tell you guys something about this company. When I got the job, I applied for a job as a PA. Motion detected at the office. And I'm just having a look at I'm going back to 2012 now. This is a while, but like I said, I keep my records. And I interviewed with a guy by the name of Dave Clark. Now, I don't even want to get too deep with Dave Clark, but let me just say this much about Dave Clark. He is now serving a 30-plus year jail sentence. Okay. So when we talk about people who come to the Cayman Islands and they pretend to be one thing, and yes, we can buy the story hook, line, and sinker. That's on us. And we want to defend individuals because we say, right, they're somehow above the law. They've done all the right things. They're this, they're that. You know, whatever. Don't defend people that you know nothing about, folks. So even this guy who was arrested on Friday by the FBI. Oh, he's such a nice guy. Sure he is. What I would suggest you do is read a little bit about him and his history. And then you might see that not everything that glitters is gold. So Dave is in jail now after being convicted some years ago for spending, let me just tell you something here. I'm going to get, or being involved in some shenanigans with the SEC. I'll leave it at that because that would be a whole other show to try and unravel what was going on. So he ran to the Cayman Islands trying to run from the federal government and applied for a job, or applied for a job, set up a company here. And the company started Cashwiz pawn shops around the Caribbean. So one of his investors, one of his partners was a guy named Keith Miles from TCI, and they got millions of dollars of money, and they're like, okay, we can spend this money. Okay. So they set up these companies, and he advertises in the paper that he's looking for a PA. Now, when I saw this job description, I can spot a tailored job description. Listen, mama na raise no fool. I can spot it a mile away. So it had all sorts of stuff in it, like oh, you needed to have a real estate license for Florida. Now, what Caymanians you know are going to have a real estate license from Florida? Why would you need that? And why would you need that to be a PA for an owner of a company? I mean, it was just so ridiculous, the JD, that I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply for this job. I want to see how these people are going to handle this. So I applied for the job, copied in immigration because I could see what this was. And I go in for an interview, and the guy says, listen, you are by far the most qualified applicant that we have received. And I'm not saying that you couldn't do this job. What I'm saying is, I'm not going to hire you to do this job. At least this dude was honest. I mean, I got to give him that. Because I've already got somebody for the job. I'm like, duh. I mean, that was a bit obvious in the job description. But we're going to hire you anyway. And we are looking for someone to do compliance. So I thought, okay, well, compliance I can definitely do. But you know me, don't come with your shenanigans and think you're going to just give me a title for compliance and make me responsible for compliance. And then I'm actually not going to get to do my job. Because a compliance officer or compliance manager has a lot of responsibility, legally and otherwise, that can get your behind in trouble. Regardless of who you're working for, you have to comply with the rules and regulations and so on. Well, as time went on, I would discover that these people don't really believe in following too many of the rules. And I was always there as the truth teller, saying you can't do this, you cannot do that. Even with HR practices, I'm like, you guys have no employment contracts, you're not doing it. I mean, it was just a hot mess. Anyway, he says to me, I can't give you this job. The person who's earmarked for the job is a woman that has worked for me for the better half of 20 years. She knows my family affairs inside and out. She has access to all of my credit cards. If I need to book a flight, if I need to do this, she does it all for me. I said, okay. So they say it's a question of trust. We just trust her, and she knows exactly what to do. But we like you. And so we want to hire you. We want to give you a job. I said, all right. So I get the job. And it was right after I had completed my PPC. So I want to say in 2011 or thereabouts. So like I said, the guy who hired me actually eventually ended up going to jail. In 2014, his partners ended up accusing him of fraud. It was just a hot mess. And a Ponzi scheme and all sorts of stuff. But needless to say, he eventually was convicted. There was a fraud case that had been following him with the SEC, and they sent him to jail for, I want to say it was over 30 years. He got a lengthy jail sentence. And this Gavin Heckle guy, I'm going to confirm that's the name, but I'm pretty sure it's Gavin. At some point, they hired Felix, right? Supposed to be as a store manager. So they cleaned. So poor Felix now, he goes in there. Felix is like the top sales guy. Because listen, if you know Felix Manzanares, you will know that Felix has a personality that is perfect for sales. So Felix could sell ice to the Eskimos, as we say. He was really good at his job. People came in to the pawn shop. Felix would know them. He'd be like, yeah, boy, I don't know, this person bringing in an iPod. We better verify the source of this item. So Felix knew a little bit about doing his due diligence. Because at the end of the day, if somebody defaults on an item, that doesn't really help the pawn business, right? They make their money if you come back and actually get your item. So that requires you doing certain things. Good morning, Perla. Perla says she's so glad that we're bringing this stuff to light. They're covering us Caymanians like rats. Wow. Perla seems to know exactly what's going on. So yes. So Felix goes in there. Sales numbers are up. He's doing a fantastic job. So when it comes time now to apply for the permanent position as store manager, of course, Felix is like, yeah, I can do this. I'm here day in and day out. Felix was working well with the staff. He had hired a couple Caymanian guys. He was managing them. He, was learning about the business. He was doing good. I see the job description put in the paper and I said, oh shit, here we go again. 1,000,001 things, 20 years of experience in jewelry repairs and gemmology, a certification as a diamond specialist. Like, it was just beyond ridiculous. Why? I'll tell you why. There was a guy in Jamaica who they wanted to bring from Jamaica. He was an American, I believe, to Cayman because he was starting to have health issues. I can't remember what his name is now, to be honest. What the heck was his name? I'm trying to ask a few people who might remember. Anyway, he was starting to have health issues. And of course, the health insurance options in Cayman were better. He'd get better coverage. So they wanted to move him here and he wanted to come to the Cayman Islands. He had previously worked here for some company, I can't remember, before he started working for Cashwiz, right? So anyway, he comes and basically they're ready to push poor Felix out the door. So they put in this inflated job description with all kind of things that they now can say, well, apparently this other guy has, I can't remember his name right now, but he has all of this, because he's like 60 years old. So of course he has all of this experience over poor Felix. And I was like, huh. So I say, hold on a second here. This ain't fair. I'm sitting here watching what's happening in this company. And trust me, there's a lot happening. This was the kind of company that wasn't going to pay you your salary on time. They weren't paying pension and insurance. So you had to stay on top of that. And anytime you asked about, well, when are you going to get my pension caught up? Well, you're being a troublemaker. Why are you? No, bitches. Pay my pension money. The last week, Magistrate Hernandez sat there and said, when companies don't pay their pension, she considers it theft, but yet they're not treated like the thieves that they are. So they get the opportunity to take years to pay your pension money back, and I was not having it. I was like, listen, put my pension money in my account. All 6 months they would go without paying pension. But yet could afford to pay all sorts of lavish travel for the so-called managers. So I wrote into immigration. Yes, I was working for the company, but not business. Wrong is wrong and right is right. And you can't paint wrong right and vice versa. I said, immigration, look here now. This is clearly a setup. This is a situation where this man is applying for this job and he is going to get the job because of what? Because of who he is? Because, oh, he wants to move from Jamaica to Cayman. The company is like, yep, no problem. And poor Felix, who's been here working countless hours, who has demonstrated the capabilities to do the job, has brought up your sales numbers before what they've ever been before, is now going to be pushed aside for this man. Immigration, wake up and don't allow this to slide through. Well, you know, immigration, they half asleep at the best of times. So they deferred it and asked for more information. And then this is what these companies do to us as Caymanians. They're going to say, right, here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you another job where you're going to get some positions and some salaries and some this and some that. Right? And we allow them to do this to us, because when we take those jobs, we become part of the problem now. Because they can say to immigration, well, they weren't quite right for this job, but don't worry, we gave them something else. And they're going to make the same salary. And then it's only a matter of time before they start to push you out the door. And that's exactly what started to happen with poor Felix. Eventually, Felix just moved on. Because, you know, Caymanians get beaten down, downtrodden, and you get sick of it. And you're just like, you know what? I'm just leaving. Even when they get rid of you and you finally decide to leave or whatever, they're going to try their best to ensure that you don't get your right pay. And I cannot even tell you the amount of people that have left that organization, that when they were leaving, I said, hold on a second here. You can't treat this Caymanian like that. You've got to pay them what they are entitled to be paid. So, you know, this was a family, Gethin Huckle, that's his name, Gethin. It's not Gavin, it's Gethin. So little Mr. Gethin, when he jumped on his high horse the other day, he reminded me, chief financial officer, he claims. He reminded me of a lot of things that I'd forgotten from back 2011 through 2013, 2014 with this cash whiz company. And I was like, boy, don't start on me, Gethin. You the same person who was knee deep in stuff that would get you landed in jail in any other place in the world, doing the most. Oh yeah. They don't want me to open my mouth. Making the most money he's ever made and not even qualified. But he could jump up and get a job in the Cayman Islands that he would not get anywhere else in the world. And then run off to the US with this same company that when the other boys were in charge, he was selling the owner down the river. And I'm thinking, only in the Cayman Islands does this shit happen. Honestly, I was so flabbergasted. But you know what? We all need to find our voices. So I want to give a special shout out to Gethin Huckle here today. There he is. He's on LinkedIn claiming now that he works for some company called Simple Management Group, probably another made-up company. He claims that he's worked for them for 5 years and 10 months now, and that's in Orlando, Florida. But what I can tell you is that's a different name. So they've changed names more than once, and the company keeps changing name because every time they get a name change or they're under some other shenanigans, they change the name. So yes, Gethin is in Orlando with the same family, and this is just a new name. So he was previously with, at least he kind of put this, well, not really. He says it's Pakiscore Group Ltd SEZC. That's another lie. It was actually CMZ. He was the group financial controller for CMZ. But when you Google their name, folks, what comes up about that name on Offshore Alert and all over the place gives you a good insight into the fact that as the chief financial controller, he would not want his name associated. So you see how they lie? This Pakisor Group LT, I've never heard of this group in my life. And I would now be willing to bet, let me just see here. I worked for the company, folks. I'm telling you, this is a bold-faced lie. I don't know who this company is. I don't know where Pakisor Group, wherever the heck, where they came out of. What I can tell you is Gecko, what's his name? Gavin, what I'm gonna tell you his name is again? Gethin Huckle worked for a company called CMZ SEZC. So the SEZC is the special economic zone. So any company in a special economic zone has to have that in their name. This company, what do you say it is? What? PAC. Hold on a second now. I've never heard this company before. ISCOR. So only God knows where he came up with this from. This must have been another company that they formed that no one knew anything about. The only place that I see this is on his profiles. Hold on now. We got an extraordinary gazette here. Let us do a quick look. Folks, people can make up and lie about stuff all the time. And they are counting on, so there is a Passacor Limited. I will contact the Special Economic Zone today to see if this company has ever been registered with them. I see no mention of it elsewhere except on stuff for him. So Gavin, what's his name? Not Gavin. Whatever the heck his name is. Heckle. Gethin. He has it listed in several different places where he claims that he's worked for them. Folks, the company that he worked for was called CMZ SEZC. They no longer exist, and they are part of a group that has been sued, that has been linked to, when you Google CMZ Group, former K Club's executive charged in connection with fraud against the government. 2004, Fred Davis Clark. Crystal Clark was his wife. Crystal got off, expelled from Panama and Honduras, respectively, in June of 2014. I was working with these people when all this went down. So how they can rewrite history, revisionary history, right? And he was eventually found guilty, like I said. And unfortunately for poor Dave, he was sentenced to a lengthy, very lengthy jail sentence in the United States of America. Pretty much he will remain for the rest of his life in a federal prison. So they revise their history. They lie about their history. Let me give you an example here. The PA job, remember the PA job I was telling you guys that I had applied for? Okay. Let me give you another example of how people lie. and how as Caymanians we need to become more savvy and in tuned with what's going on. So this is the lady now, she's on LinkedIn, who got the job because she had been his PA for many, many years. She says, Chief Administrative Officer and Executive Assistant. CMZ Limited, SEZZ. At least she's got the company name right. Unlike Gecko, who worked for that same amount of time for this exact same company, but he's lying about it. So now he's changed it to some Pakistan group. No clue who the hell they are. She said that she's worked there for 10 years and 9 months, Cayman Islands and USA. Now here's the problem with this. And yes, she did work. She did offer administrative support to the president and CEO. This company, CMZ Ltd SECZ, did not exist for 10 years and 9 months. So this is another bold-faced lie. This company was formed after the first company was having issues, and the owner that hired me, not to get this job that I applied for because he wasn't going to give it to me like he said, but the person that hired me, David Clark, ran off to Honduras in order to keep the feds off of his behind. The feds eventually got him because they ain't that stupid, right? So the feds they caught him en route to Panama because he was traveling to Panama, starting up a new business deal. They nabbed him in Panama with the help of the Panamanian authorities. And then they turned around. The wife was still in Honduras with the kids. The Honduran authorities went knocking to her door and they said, you have two choices. Sorry. You guys lied on your immigration application to get into Honduras. So we can take you and throw you in a Honduran jail while we sort this mess out. Or as an American citizen, you can pack up and return to the United States of America, where the feds are waiting on her. Now, any fool will know the last place in the world you want to go is jail in certain countries, including Honduras. So she was like, nope, I'll take my chances as an American soil. At least in America, you're probably going to get 3 square meals a day. So she then went back to the US. So this company, CMZ Ltd SEZC, existed or was created after his exit or shortly before his exit from the Cayman Islands, right? When let me just go to offshore alert. When he decided to sell his shares and to leave the jurisdiction, they got into the economic zone because a lot of scandalous people go into the economic zone believing that the economic zone will offer them some protection. So it's ironic. The name of the company was CMZ Group Limited, SEZZ. And if you Google them, you will see, I'm going to bring this up here, folks. Like I said, you got to know how to do your research when you're dealing with liars. You will easily see how this company has been in more than one shenanigan. Look at this, folks. This is just a snippet off of Offshore Alert. So this is the company suing Dave Clark, the same guy that sold them the company and that helped them form this economic zone company. Because then his partners turned on him once he went to Honduras and basically said, oh, you lied about the finances of the company. You were using the company to finance your personal life, because he was used to living large private jets and the like. And so the company isn't worth what you told us it was worth when we agreed to buy it from you. So the $4 million that we were paying you for the company, and we gave you your $2 million as a deposit, we're not going to pay the remaining $2 million because you lied to us. And it was a fraud that you committed. So his own partners turned on him because they didn't want to pay what he said the company was valued. This same dude, Gethin, let me tell you how cutthroat he is. He was sitting down working with Keith and Joe Zahn when they were suing David Clark. Listen to me, folks. This is the corporate world of the Cayman Islands. So they were involved all together. They had Gavin doing audit trails and trying to dig up where they were alleging that Dave Clark had misappropriated money. Look here, Neil Johnson in 2017 sued them for breach of contract because they had promised him all kind of money for bringing investors on board, and as usual, didn't fulfill their promises. Bardi Financial Limited was suing them, a stop notice. So they had all these companies set up all over the place, my dear. Joe Zahn leads scandal-plagued Cayman-based CMZ Group. So you see now why Gethin has to lie? Why he can't say that he worked for CMZ? Because when you Google CMZ, all this stuff comes up. The PA still has it though, sort of. She has CMZ Limited, SEZZ, so not quite the correct name. Because the proper name was CMZ Group Ltd, SEZC. Anyway, close enough. So this dude is a liar, Gethin, and he has the audacity to go last month and comment on the Compass article. Now, he must have thought that I forgot everything that he's been involved in. Because trust me, me not forget. Not only do I not forget, but I have the evidence to back up what I am saying. So I have always been a truth teller, folks, whether people like it or not. That's why certain companies don't want me working for them. Because when they're doing wrong, I got to tell them they're doing wrong, and you cannot do this. You have got to follow the law. You can't come and hire your nieces and nephews and every single family member you got while there are Caymanians out there looking for employment who are qualified and can do the job. Your nieces and nephews have no experience. They're used to you taking care of them and being spoiled brats their entire lives. All of a sudden, you open up a pawn shop in the Cayman Islands and everybody gets a job. Even the drug addict in the family, the crackhead in the family, gets to come into our jurisdictions and get a job. Send your son to rehab. That's where he needs to be, not working at a pawn shop. But you see, Caymanians don't get those kind of opportunities, right? So this is how these connections work. Now, Gethin is still tied in with the company. And listen, I can't even tell you how many name changes they've gone through, because what he has in his resume right now about Simple Management Group from 2014, 5 years and 10 months. That's when he must have moved to the US. I don't even know if it's been that long. It may be close to that now because my daughter's 4. Yeah, that's about right. So that's when he moved to the US. That wasn't the name of the company at the time, and his LinkedIn account has changed. He's updated the name. So they lie, and we sit back and want to put them on a pedestal and give them all sorts of credentials. Well, not me. I'm not business who you is. I don't care where you come from and what piece of paper you claim to have. I know how I got mine. I know how I work for my piece of paper. I don't know about you. So to bring this conversation full circle, because we're definitely out of time this morning, and everything that was on the agenda that we never even got to talk about, we will definitely talk about tomorrow. But Bruce, to answer your question, why am I not invited to the press conference? Ask Alvin McLaughlin. They don't want anybody there asking them some straight up questions. They don't want anyone there who is really representing the interests of the people to be telling you the unfiltered truth. How can your premier sit down at a press conference on Friday and tell the people of the Cayman Islands that someone who came into this country illegally, did not apply to travel time, did not go through the proper stringent procedures that we have in place, was put back on a plane? This is what your premier said. I'm going to get the clip for tomorrow's show because this is what we need to tackle tomorrow morning, good people. Was put back on a flight. Okay? And has returned to the UK. Your premier sat there on Friday and said this to the people of the Cayman Islands. And then we find out by Saturday morning that CBC has issued a press statement saying the person is still here. Say what? How does that work exactly? You've got to be kidding me. You mean to tell me we're about to reopen our borders and we're doing a test run right now? Someone comes in. British Airways allowed a person to come in without the proper authorization. So we have hope that this system's going to work when the airlines themselves are already failing with just a few people, right? And then not only do they get it wrong and this person gets to come in without applying, because remember, you have to apply where you're going, who you're going to be staying with, all of this information. So this person literally just got a ticket and came in. Yes, Panda. This is what I'm telling you about. This is the BS that's happening right here in the Cayman Islands. The poor premier is either confused or misinformed. And if the premier don't know what's going on in this country, what about the rest of us? How are we going to know what's really happening here? We know because we're trying to keep our ears to the ground. So even when we get it 97% right, they still want to talk about, oh, Cayman Mall Road, fake news. Well, guess what? What he said turns out to have been fake news at a government-sponsored press conference. And I don't hear anybody calling that bullshit straight out. So he had it wrong. Let's give the premier the benefit of the doubt. I don't think he would lie about something like that. He seemed very impassioned about, yes, they were put back on the plane. Well, they were not. They were not put back on a plane, folks. They're still here in the Cayman Islands because CBC, Border Control, has allowed them to remain. And the premier didn't know that, evidently, during his 2 p.m. press conference. And so now I'm a little bit worried about how we are going to handle this reopening. How prepared are we really, folks? I'm scared. I don't know about the rest of you, but listen, I ain't trying to get no damn COVID. Okay? I think I'm healthy, but I don't know. And I don't want to die. I'm not ready. I got a lot more to do. A lot more to say, folks. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning. We had a wonderful audience, wonderful participation. I think at one point our numbers went up to 170 something people tuned in. Love it when you guys are here for the cold hard truth. We just give it to you as it is. And yes, this is what happened on Friday. We've got a lot more to discuss about what came out of Friday's press conference. So we're going to need more than the Lord to help us, folks. We're going to have to do, somebody said, I think it was Lorna said, we got to pray. We got to do a lot more than just praying, but you're absolutely right. Lorna, I'm so glad that you enjoyed the program. And thank you for being the catalyst to allow us to have this conversation and to really expand, because sometimes I think, you know, I know sometimes I say things and people go, why does she have that opinion? Why does she say things? And boy, I could literally write a book. The things that I have experienced, that I know, that I've seen, that I've witnessed, it's a lot. And sometimes the mind does get a little bit forgetful. And so you don't always even remember how many cases like this, how many times Caymanians have been disenfranchised time and time and time again. It is frustrating. It really, really is. And so when you see Caymanians, starting to really say, okay, we've had enough. You can understand why when you have the details. So I just looked up this company. Former CEO of a Keys-based vacation rental investment company has been sentenced to 40 years in a federal prison on bank fraud and obstruction charges. I'm going to put this here for you guys to read. And these are the people who are landing in the Cayman Islands, opening up shop, opening up businesses, treating Caymanians like second-class citizens. And when you speak up, and this is what makes me uncomfortable about what went down on Thursday with the whole bracelet shenanigans. When you dare to speak up, these people think that they can control you. They think that they can put a padlock on the mouth of Sandy Hill. That's not gonna work, honey. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you're married to. I don't care if you're married to the top person in the country all the way down. It doesn't matter to me. This is my country. And as someone who has lived elsewhere in someone else's country and have known that there are rules that you play by, in my country, you're not going to tell me how it's going to work. I'm sorry. But you're not going to come here and dictate to me that I'm going to have to bow down to you and I have to be a second-class citizen, or you're going to get us fired from our jobs. You're going to fire our husbands. You're going to do all sorts of the most. No, Bobo. Every single piece of paper I have, all 5 or 6 pieces that I've lost count on, right? Every time I sat down and put my head in a book when I did not feel like it, to say, Sandy, this is what they tell you you need to do. Get this piece of paper. Now, not only do I have the piece of paper, experience, life knowledge, can run circles around you in any kind of debate any day of the week, I must still sit back and allow you to come into the Cayman Islands, enjoy your beautiful island, enjoy the company of a beautiful, handsome Caymanian man who is in love with you, I guess, and wants to marry you and have a family here. Now you think you're Queen Bee, you're sitting on a pedestal, and you get to tell me that I don't get to question your shenanigans and what appears to be dishonest behavior, that I must shut up, or you're going to call the police on me, or you're going to do this, or you're going to do that. Look at me. Me not care. Me not business. Call the queen if you have to. It is time that as Caymanians in this country, we begin to speak up and allow our voices to be heard. And I'm not mincing my words, right? Wrong is wrong and right is right. The truth matters. It does matter. I don't care what the Grand Court said in my case. The truth does matter. And we should all seek to be more truthful in our lives, in our existence. And we need to start electing people to public office. We've got less than 8, 9 months left. Start putting people in office who have the ability to tell the people the truth, even when you do not want to hear the truth. Put people in elected office who are going to fight for you as a Caymanian. Now, we're not finished with Alric Lindsay because he has a very interesting story. Our next conversations with segment is going to be coming up here shortly with him. But do you know that right now, Alric, who's running for Georgetown Central, is in the middle of a battle of his own, just like the likes of Sheena Ebanks, where he is suing the Cayman Islands government because they are trying to take food off of his table and trying to prevent him as an attorney from getting work in his own country. Caymanians, non-Caymanians, I don't care who you're from, where you're from. If you're not aware of the injustices that are happening in this country, and I always chuckle when people say to me once they get PR and then they get their status and they can't find a job, oh, before I became a Caymanian, I had no problems getting a job. Welcome to our cold, hard reality, folks. Really? Now you can't get a job because you got Cayman passport? I mean, you still look the part. Imagine the rest of us who've always had the Cayman passport and who've always didn't look the part. And now you're finding it more challenging? Really? You get to see the other side of the coin a little bit? Huh. Wow. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. COVID or no COVID, folks, we need some change around here. Seriously. This is but one issue, the disenfranchisement of Caymanians. There are a lot of other issues that concern me as a Caymanian in this country. And we have to just continue on this course. You know, there's just too much that's going on here. They don't like Cayman Mall Road. I don't care. You know, we have leveled the playing field like nobody has in the short space of 3 years. I mean, everywhere I go, I hear people, sometimes I'm sitting in a restaurant, just quietly sipping on my hot chocolate or whatever, and I hear people like, oh, did you see on Cayman Mall Road, blah, blah, blah. And I think to myself, wow, I couldn't get a social media coordinator job for some real estate company. I'll tell you who it is another day. But yet I can sit down and from the onset create a news media content creators, because we don't just do news, we're in an entire space of content creation. That everyone now knows the term Mall Road. Some people have never heard Mall Road in their life before. Everyone now sitting down talking about Cayman Mall Road, blah, blah, blah. But yet, Bruce, the powers that be don't want to acknowledge us. So they will continue to not invite us to press conferences, and we will still continue to do our jobs. Over 45,000 social media followers between Facebook and Instagram. That's it. But yet someone is going to tell me my little diploma in digital marketing wouldn't have been of any assistance to their company, apparently. Well, I sure use it to help myself. Andine, thank you for tuning in. Alric, we have more than had enough, my friend. Why are we not protesting by the thousands? Because that's just who we are. Nope, we're going to sit down and let me protest for you. And then you're going to sit down and talk about me when you're finished too. Ay, ay, ay. Oh, Lorna, now you're hitting the nail on the head. When you become a truth teller, you do become dangerous to certain people who are all about keeping secrets. And boy, Cayman has a lot of secrets. Caymanians, non-Caymanians. And we're only touching the tip of the iceberg. Thank you for that, Lorna. I appreciate it. But ultimately, you cannot stop the truth. And so it is what it is. Alec, we only have government TV now. We need more than that to get alternative views plus transparency. Well, here you are. Cayman Mall Road. Other people want to say they're independent media now that they need some money. They're telling you to pay them money to read their news because they want to protect independent media. The irony of that statement, given the Compass's background and their history, does not elude me, because trust me, they have been in the back pockets of government for a long time. They got all the government contracts, all the government advertising. And now that some of that is starting to fall away, oh, we're independent media. Protect independent media by paying for it. When was the last time the Compass called a spade when it came to government? Oh, I remember. David Legge. Well, he tried to call a spade, and then Alden pulled government funding from him for about 6 months. And that hurt David Legge so much that he crawled back to Alden on his hands and knees and kissed Alden's ass. And I guess after a few drinks, they came to an agreement. Oh, we'll give you back. And it was quietly done. I want you guys to remember how this happened, and then I'm going to end the show. The Legislative Assembly unanimously voted to pull government advertising from the Compass because of comments that David Legge, who was the editor at the time, made. Now, once something goes before the Legislative Assembly as a vote, right? To undo it, it should go back through the same process. You show me in the Hansards where the premier undid that vote by the elected members of the entire MLA. It's never happened. He decided on his own to start re-advertising back with the Compass. So every single government agency meeting, every job, DCFS is having a meeting, this one is having a meeting, we're having a special seminar. The Compass gets all the display advertising from that. Millions of dollars over the years, I am sure the government has spent on Compass advertising. So now that the Compass is feeling the shift in media, because people don't necessarily need to read the Compass to get the news. People stopped buying their newspaper long before COVID. COVID was just the final nail in them coffin. Now, we're independent media. Oh, really? You've been calling out government since when? That one time that put you in such hot water that you would never do that again because you don't want to lose a government contract? That's hardly independent media. You have benefited from having this relationship with government so much so that when Cayman 27 disappeared, the brilliant idea that Alden and his government has is the Compass would start providing GIS, CIG-TV, the government-run TV station, with content. The Compass, a private newspaper, partners with government, CIG-TV, into some kind of partnership that they announce, trading news or whatever. And we actually think the Compass is independent news? On what planet are we living, please? So that relationship never really worked out too well for the Compass. That didn't help anybody. We don't see people running to the Compass because, ooh, you're working with the Cayman Islands government now. You're working with CIG-TV. Nobody cared. So the next marketing ploy is to call themselves independent media. Well, folks, you have independent media in the Cayman Islands. It is called Cayman News Service. It is called Cayman Mall Road. So when we get, for example, documents that they want to be hidden, right? That show that the previous head of the fire service was getting this $55,000 payout from the public purse for working overtime, right? When we get that details and we put it out there, what does the Compass do? The so-called independent media, they do an editorial. This is where I need to remind you guys, they do an editorial saying, the only question we need to ask about this is where did Cayman Mall Road get these official print-offs from the government time log system? That's the independent media that they wish to be? Say what? People, do not forget. I am here to remind you of the truth. The truth doesn't need a crutch to stand on, you know. Everybody's so happy Alden has done a wonderful job with COVID, they've said. Right. And he has done a decent job handling COVID. However, that does not erase everything else this government has been up to for the past 3.5 years. So do not be short-sighted in your approach to the upcoming election. We will remind you of their transgressions that you need to be reminded of. Even during COVID, Minister of Health, Mr. Seymour, had a concert this weekend. Already gearing up for you all to forget everything. Because all he needs to do is throw a little concert with some singing and some free foods, and you know them fool came on him's gonna vote him right back in. That's what he's saying about you all in Lawton Town. Wake up, my people. It is time to wake up and smell the coffee, smell the tea, whatever. That's it, folks. I went into a little bit overtime, but you know, once you get going, sometimes you need to just speak it. Tomorrow morning, we will delve into what transpired during the press briefing. There's a couple things that the governor has said. There's some constitutional changes, folks, where we have shot ourselves in the foot. Because of this same-sex partner, civil partnership, whatever the heck we're calling it, issue. And everybody could see this coming. The writing was on the wall. So no one now should be surprised. Lorna, thank you for tuning in. Miss Darlene, all the way in the UK. Perla, Alric, thank you so much. Miss Andine, Chrissy, every single one of you, Evelyn, Karen, Hustlin, you guys are beautiful. Sandra, we're all in the same boat today. Sharon Aliano made some good points. Yep. We need to talk about some of these issues. So we are just scratching the top today. We will continue to have these conversations, and I want you guys to have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, because I have you to thank, you all, every single one of you that tune into this program. I have you to thank for making CMR, Cayman Mall Road, your #1 go-to spot for news. You guys provide us the information. You give us tips to follow up on. There's a new development, I understand, that's going into Newlands in a residential area that people have concerns about. We're digging into all of these stories for you. People like a Dookie, girl, keep your chin up. Continue to fight for what is right. Continue to fight for prison reform. and to give our prisoners some hope of being able to turn their lives around. Although they keep trying to fire you. You hang in there, girl. You hang in there. We will continue to bring you guys the cold hard truth. Good luck to Kathy. You're going to do it this time, Kathy. We have faith in you. Alric, you get them, boy. It's going to happen. And need I remind you, I don't know when's the next full moon, but need I remind you of shenanigans like this?
A very special connection with the moon. I was born in July 1969, and everybody knows what happened then. The first man went on the moon in the month I was born, July 1969. The thing about the moon is that we have more energy. We feel more extroverted and connected to our partners, and have more interest in sex due to our gravitational pull of the moon and Earth and the consequent energy released during this time. If you didn't know, a full moon increases women's sexual desire. The lunar cycle seems to affect women of all shapes and sizes. So I'm just saying, pay attention to the moon and bring up these totals. And by the way, this is not irresponsible. This is about saving a nation.
Well, folks, you want to talk about saving a nation? Save a nation by allowing Caymanians who wish to be employed to be able to get a job in their own country. I don't want to hear foolishness about no damn full moon and no sexting during a full moon and procreation. Everybody knows how to do that. You got to tell people how to have sex and have babies. We can do that with one eye closed, sir. This is the caliber of elected donkeys and jackasses we have in the LA. And we continue to elect. Janelle, it is time for some big changes in these islands. And 2020 is right around the corner, good folks, and we are going to bring it as hard as we can. Thank you so much, Louis. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning around 7:15-ish. Perla, love you, my dear. You're so beautiful. Yes, Lorna, we've got to stand up for our country and our own Caymanians. You guys have a blessed, wonderful day. Karen says Burger King has some full moon specials. And I'm pretty sure they ain't got nothing to do with fornicating and making babies. Grab a burger instead, folks. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow morning.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.